The battle over tolls for the downtown and midtown tunnels hits the road and heads to Richmond.
On Wednesday, both sides will take their legal ammunition to the highest court in Virginia.
The state Supreme Court will finally decide whether those tolls are constitutional. Tonight, only on 10, Andy Fox sits down one-on-one with the lawyer who will make or break this important case. Andy, a lot of eyes on this one.
Oh, absolutely. Lead anti-toll attorney Patrick McSweeney sat down only with 10 on your side. We have aggressively covered the toll debate, and on Wednesday, the final arguments will be heard. We do not know how the Supreme Court justices will rule, but we do know this. There has never been a more important, more impacting, more divisive legal battle in Hampton Roads. What will be the trickle down if you win?
The state has to come up with the money.
If you're opposed to tolls on the downtown and midtown tunnels, then this is your guy. Attorney Patrick McSweeney, who will argue before the state Supreme Court that the tolls are unconstitutional.
I think that's their strongest point.
Since 1903, the State Corporation Commission has regulated public corporations.
You can't give VDOT the power to establish the rate of return for a private company.
But when the General Assembly approved the Public-Private Transportation Act, the SCC was excluded as a check and balance against private profit.
You struck that provision that the Corporation Commission had to set the rate of return. But what you've done now is give VDOT, an unelected body, not the Corporation Commission, and the party to benefit, the power to go to a room, close the door, and negotiate the rate of return. That can't be constitutional.
VDOT and ERC argue the Virginia Constitution gives the SCC regulatory control over the rates only of railroad, telephone, gas, and electric companies. McSweeney disagrees, arguing the General Assembly assigns responsibility to the SCC for all public service corporations, which this is. In their court brief, VDOT and ERC think tolls are not taxes when they are used to finance an integrated network of travel crossings, which the tunnels are. McSweeney's expecting VDOT and ERC to argue the economic and political impact, all the money spent so far. The cameras and the toll gantries are already up. The cost of terminating the contract for convenience could be in excess of $400 million.
The other side's appeal to economics and the practical consequences and the politics, I think demonstrates a weakness in their legal position, in my view. But I'm hoping the court will do what it's done in the past and disregard those arguments and focus on what's constitutional.
But here's the big question. What if McSweeney wins? What if the High Court agrees this contract and the tolls are unconstitutional?
There's been talk that the General Assembly could simply stamp it.
Stamp it in what?
Legislate that we ratify the deal.
Will the elected members of the General Assembly rubber stamp the project, making the tolls legal, which they can do? Virginia Beach State Senator Frank Wagner.
I think at this point we're getting way ahead of the project, okay?
But that is a possible scenario.
Obviously, it's a possible scenario.
Senator Wagner is chairman of the Transportation Subcommittee on the Finance Committee. And if McSweeney wins, Wagner will be the point man to make things right.
If they rule against the state, they're going to tell you why. And that's going to dictate the type of legislation to respond to putting this in.
Wagner, who had nothing to do with the current contract, thinks if the state loses, renegotiation of the contract is inevitable, specifically limiting the amount of escalating tolls for 58 years.
I think if you run the tolls out at what they're currently being proposed and run them out 10, 15 years, you're going to find some very, very large toll rates.
But in the end, McSweeney thinks the Virginia Supreme Court will uphold what has already been decided in the lower court.
It's not a question of politics. It's not a question of whether it's a good project, bad project. It's a question of who has the constitutional authority and who is politically accountable.
Now, the ERC and VDOT would not do an on-camera interview. In the event that Patrick McSweeney wins, it will call into question all transportation projects that come under the Public-Private Transportation Act. What is unconstitutional here will be ruled unconstitutional everywhere in Virginia. And where will 10 on your side be on Wednesday? Well, we will be at the state Supreme Court watching all of this unfold. Don't forget, lots of coverage of the toll debate right now on the traffic page at wavy.com. I'm Andy Fox, 10 on your side.